If you could be a member of any sitcom family, which one would it be?
The Full House.
Friends.
The Proud Family.
What is happening?
Man, I was very excited to do this podcast. That answer just went so many different directions. No, let's not get into that. Well, let's get into it.
All right, back on the podcast. Not by popular demand. Our Niyatin Hadia.
Let's go.
That's very rude, actually.
Unfortunately.
Amber could not be here today. She has something going on with
crazy
her throat.
Crazy disease.
And it's wait, let me not say it that way. She's sick. But she says hi to all the podcasts.
Yeah. I think she has like some strep. It's nothing too
thing.
Crazy, so she'll recover soon.
And she said for some reason to say hi to everyone's brother. So
yeah, so if you have,
so her spirit has not left her.
If you have an attractive brother that weight lifts and does other things, Amber's DMs are still open during these hard times for her.
So we got Friends. I heard Friends. I heard what else?
I said the Full House family, but
The Full House family.
Wow, making
Shamir,
a new show.
What was yours?
I said Friends.
Oh, so 2 Friends and 1 Full House family.
Yeah.
First of all, the Friends.
I've never watched Friends.
Wait,
What?
really?
No,
So you just decided to go with that one.
That was the one I just thought of. I was like, that's one of the most
They're
popular
not even
ones, right?
They're not even like a family. You could
Yeah.
have
But they
went like
kinda
Fresh
are, though.
Prince,
Damn.
the Cosbys.
But is Friends the most popular or no?
What sitcom?
Yeah.
yeah.
One of the
I don't
most.
know, maybe, but
That,
okay.
that's
Well,
why I
Niyathi,
thought of
you've
it.
seen Friends, right? Mm-hmm. I thought
Yeah,
Gen Z
it's
people
not-
didn't like Friends.
it's
Who
not
is giving
good.
your information on Gen Z? Where are you getting this
Yo,
information?
Shamir, you've heard
Yeah.
this, right?
What?
Like Friends was canceled by Gen
Oh,
Z.
yeah. Kind of. I did hear.
I mean, like, it's problematic, but everyone still watched it.
But it was a vibe. You mess with the vibe though.
I mess with, like, how, like, cozy it is and, like, how cute it is. You know, everyone, like, everything just works out. And, like, everyone cares for each other so much. Like, it's so cute.
That's every.
Like, I want to
sitcom.
be... No, but I want to be a part of that friend group.
Do the
Okay.
Disney shows count as sitcoms?
I don't know what count. Like I was just looking up like what the most popular sitcoms are, and it's like well, right now it's Schitt's Creek, and I don't even understand how that's a sitcom. Like, I guess I'm thinking of it traditionally, like where
Yeah,
the
like it's
audience
one room.
claps, and it's
Yeah.
like one studio room, all that. Okay, Full House is a great answer.
Thank
the
you.
Full House house, like, you know, when everyone would, like, whoever would be the guest and they would walk in and then they'd get this just great like applause every single time and be like, oh, like this person's here, and it felt so homey. That's a good answer.
Thank you very much. My
said
dad
you
made
proud-
me watch it.
Made you
Aw.
watch it. You didn't
Well,
want to
no,
watch it.
I wasn't like planning on it, right? Because I didn't know what it was, and then my dad was like, "I used to watch this all the time to learn English," and I was like, "All right, like I'll give it a shot."
And that's how
And
you
I
learned
really
English?
liked it, and that's how I learned English. Yeah,
Wait, actually?
no, that's how I learned English.
I was like, okay.
No, he learned English like partially from watching those kinds of shows, so he was like, "It's nice."
That's a good
And I
one.
was
Did you
like,
see
"Okay."
the what's it called when they brought it back?
reboot?
Yeah, the reboot.
I started
Full
watching
House?
it, and then I was like,
Doesn't hit the
I
same?
don't think I like this as much.
Yeah, I watched
Yeah.
like the first season. I was like,
Don't they need the twins? Like, would that have made it complete?
I think
No,
it,
it was
would've
just
made
like
better.
it was also like with the times, but it didn't really work out that well. Like, it just felt weird.
And Aunt Becky, right? She had this whole scandal thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that was afterwards. I said the Proud Family. Does anybody know what that is?
I love that. I
Never
wish
watched
I
it, but I
chose
know
that
it.
answer.
It was an animated one. We actually
It's
used to
so
watch
good.
the Proud Family. It was like, you know, there was a lot of those black sitcoms that got popular, and it was like, oh, this is different. Like, this feels different. And it was very cultural and all that. And it wasn't your standard sort of sitcom. And there was a different type of comedy and stuff. Like the Proud Family was that in animation. It was a really cool family. Penny and all her friends, and there was like these bullies. It was a good one. If people watched Proud Family, they'll know what I'm talking about. It was a good one.
Well, welcome to this sitcom, Strange Flavors. My name is Shimmer.
I'm Faraz. You guys
I'm
can introduce
Fabio.
yourselves.
All right.
I'm Niyati.
And this is the strangest and greatest podcast in the game. It's brought to you by Olive Theory. You can email us or send us your music at strangeflavorspodcast@gmail.com. You can listen to this podcast anywhere you listen to your podcasts, and we are also on YouTube, so be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We're also on your favorite social medias, right, at Strange Flavors. And if you'd like to support this podcast and be like Strange Flavors Town, such as Bobber's Bagels, Cassie's Cupcakes, Airhouse Ices, Fariha's Falafels, Uslam's Apples, and if you want to open up your own store, there's a link down below.
Bam.
Bam. And we do have a awesome YouTube channel that goes by the name of Ronald Pono. We have a Patreon. We have a Discord where you can submit questions, guests, and other things and talk about, the topics we talk about in this podcast over there in the Discord. And we also have amazing merch on ronaldpono.com.
You're fantastic at that. Did I ever tell you that?
No, for like 2 years, you're like, dude, you're trash at this. Like you.
What?
So
Yeah,
this is the first time.
It was true, and it's still true.
Damn.
Okay, I got these articles I need to share with you guys that I came across, and I just need to know that I'm not crazy here. First one.
You're crazy.
Well, yes, that's true. First one, I saw this on iHeart. Okay, imagine.
Okay,
You're
I'm
married.
imagining. Sorry.
You're married for 10 years with someone, right? Okay. What are you already saying? Okay, like.
I'm trying to imagine, but I don't know how that would be.
Okay. Well, this is from a guy's perspective, but she breaks up with you, right? 10 years, she breaks up with you. And then she marries your stepson. And has a kid with him.
Wait, like your actual son.
Yeah.
And then she marries your actual son.
Yeah. So she's an Instagram influencer, right? Her name is Marina Balmashiva. I don't know how to pronounce it, but yeah, her and her husband, after 10 years, broke up, and then she married the stepson. Stepson is cool with it. There's like a picture of them before and currently. There's a picture with him when he's like a little boy. She's 22 and he's 7 years old. And now she's 35 and he's 20 years old.
He was
They're-
groomed. Like that's not okay.
But
Who's
they
worse,
look,
the son or the mother?
Who's, huh?
Like
The
who's-
mother.
The mother.
Yeah, 100%.
What do you mean who's worse? They're in love, bro.
No, but like
Look, click on the link. Look at their pictures.
this is gonna change my mind.
They actually look fine now. Like they look like they're same age. It's just weird seeing the picture next to them that like they're 7 and 22. That's the weird part.
But this kid has seen this person as a mother figure for 10 years.
Also, that woman, like, raised him, like, as a son. You can't just raise a 7-year-old and not see him as your son, or, like, know a 7-year-old and not see him as your son. What the hell?
And then just flips.
And then
Yeah,
just
it's
be
like,
like, oh,
actually-
I'm actually in love with you.
She
Let's
actually
get
looks
married.
younger in the older photo.
Really? Wait.
Like
Yeah,
your
that's what I'm
photo?
saying. That's what I'm saying. It's weird because she looks younger. The husband's ex, I think, is like their babysitter. or
Yeah,
something.
this
Hold on.
family needs to meet new people.
She
This is
added.
not it.
It says right here. She added, "Did I have regrets that I destroyed the family? Both yes and no. I was ashamed that I killed the stability of mom and dad. Did I want to return to my ex? No. Do I feel anger and hatred towards him? Not any longer."
That's
So what about the relationship with the son and the dad now?
Yeah.
I guess she's saying she destroyed it.
Okay, yeah. To make things in the family even more interesting, Vladimir's mother So Vladimir is the son. Another of the husband's ex-wives plans to help them care for the baby. So imagine being the dad in this position. You just lost your wife and your son, who are married to each other, are having a son, and your ex-wife is caring for the baby.
Dude, the dad's probably like some super villain or something and has tormented them. I
Or
think.
this is his villain backstory. It's
Or-
either one
yeah,
of
this is-
those.
Or that.
This is the worst luck any man could have right here. That's wild, bro. That's wild. I'm gonna follow her though. Just to keep up with
He's like, I want to see how this
her
unfolds.
Her Instagram is linked below. Everyone, give her a follow. Okay. Okay. This one is one that you guys had quite a few opinions on, but Isan shared this with us. Another person that works over here at Olive Theory, but this was an event. It's actually still taking place on in March. It's cinnamon and milk speed dating. So white women and brown men edition. So it's made strictly for white women and brown men. And it's on Eventbrite, and you can like sign up and go to it. And they have like other mixes, right? Like,
Is it made by the white women or made by the brown person? Or we don't know.
does it say who it's made by?
Because it'd be funny if it's like a brown dude. Like, yo, I'm just trying to meet white women.
Dude, I mean,
I'm just trying to find a wife.
I want to know how many white women sign up for this, because the funny thing is the picture is not even a white woman. She's at most like Latina, but she looks like she's probably Desi. Wait, so they have other ones on here that are like,
Man. I wish
Like, there's
Amber
the-
was here. She would just be like, yo, men are trash. Like, after this.
well, the opposite one exists too. So brown
Okay.
women who want white
So
men.
I'm looking at the picture. The guy doesn't even look desi. This is weird.
No, but I don't think that there's like everyone was blowing up on the event, but like I don't know if there's a problem here. Like it's so direct. It's to the point.
How do I sign up? No,
That's what I'm trying.
No, but
It
why
says
is
10
it
to 20 bucks.
to 20? Yeah, what does that mean?
It's probably
Alright.
like 10 for women.
For anyone interested, it's $20, $2.29 fee. You get one bottle of Grey Goose or Bacardi, and maximum of 4 people.
Yeah, look, we will be doing a whole different event for white men and brown women additionally.
Do you think it's weird though? Like, I know it's not seen as weird for you to go after some of your own culture, right? But for someone to specifically single out someone from another culture and be like, I only want that, do you think that's weird?
Why is that weird?
Or
If
is that
that's like
also-
something
It's
that
their
you
I don't
preference.
know.
prefer.
there's-
And also,
It is-
especially if there's an event dedicated to this, it's bingo. Like that's everything you. Why like try to go around the bush when you can just get right to it?
Yeah.
This is it, and you'll find me there for sure.
For us.
So they have a bunch of events that
Well-
are made for like if a white women who want black men and
Yeah.
like
But-
all these combinations.
But Hadia, to your point, I do think the weirdest people go to these.
Yeah,
I
me
think.
too. But it's
I
like,
think.
I think some people it is like a preference, right? But then like there are people that will like take it too far, like where they like fetishize the other person's ethnicity, and that's like the only thing they find attractive about them. Like,
I love
Yeah.
I love the hashtags on here. Chocolate City events, Cinnamon Hustler. We are the Starbucks of love.
Yo, what if we find the dad of the Russian? Oh, wait, he's not brown, but the Russian dad shows.
he
goes-
he goes to the other one, the
Oh,
one
the
with
white
the
man.
brown
Yeah, the
woman.
white
Yeah.
man.
And
From,
the-
yeah.
No, I think I agree with you. I think there's probably a lot of like weird people that might sign up, but there has to be at least like 1 or 2 normal people that are just like, you know what? Who cares? Let me just go to this thing, and maybe they find each other or they find someone else that they think is interesting, but I don't know. Like it's fine.
They have like rules and like itinerary, like of how this whole thing's gonna go.
Itinerary. Can you see the itinerary?
You can
Yeah.
see the pictures too, and it's just like interracial couples or whatever.
I just don't like the Shutterstock photo. Like they put a literal Shutterstock photo.
Yeah, and it has the Shutterstock
Logo.
watermark on it.
Yeah.
Like you can't. That means that like you don't have a success story yet.
This was made by a boomer. Oh wait, there's pictures on the bottom.
That's what I'm
It's
saying.
Different
Why couldn't they
ethnicities.
just use those?
But none of them are brown men and white women.
Yeah.
It's everything like else.
I don't know. This is
It's white girls smoking hookah, and then a white girl with a black guy, and then just like some lounge area. That's the pictures.
oh
So
my
Oh my
gosh.
god.
I think we should sign up. I think we should go check it out, see the scene.
Be hilarious.
You know what? You can recruit guests for the podcast. You can be like, yo, you know what? I think you have
Oh,
a really
yeah.
interesting story.
Yeah.
Like,
Bro,
why'd you
You
go to
should be on
this?
our
Bro,
podcast.
This
Yo,
would be
how'd you end
actually-
up here?
This would be actually really great to go to.
Be hilarious.
I feel
But I
like
feel
it
like
would be
everyone would be
fun.
older. I feel like this is an older type. People,
Yeah.
Like it says 21
Well-
plus.
Well,
but I
if
feel-
you want a cougar, like,
Oh, true.
and maybe they want a little cub.
Oh, that now you got me interested.
I'm telling you,
That's interesting.
we could partner up. We could go together, wear suits,
Yo.
show up and be like, yeah, I'm looking for some, you know.
Can
That
me and
would actually be
Hadia
amazing.
dress up as guys and then come?
No, there's a separate event for you. Go to
Yeah.
that
But I
one.
feel like that makes me feel uncomfortable though.
It's in
Let me
DC.
just wear a mustache.
It's in DC.
It's in DC. What if it's all brown dudes?
Hello, I come here.
or it's like one white girl and they're all like they have
all,
their
like,
hands in their
fighting for
pockets
her.
all around her.
It's like a circle, and she's like, "Hey."
Imagine.
I have a feeling it might be that.
Me too.
Probably.
Oh
Probably.
no. Hey, good luck to everybody that's participating.
Yeah.
I really actually want to go.
Yeah. That'd be
So
sick.
so
It's a month from now, so
I might like pull a last minute show up. Let's do it. Okay, last thing. So this whole conversation sparked up this old traumatizing article for you two. It says 5 reasons why you should not date Indian girls
Oh my god.
Did you read it?
on returnofkings.com. So the article is really inappropriate. Like it says horrible.
Here's what I don't understand. He dated enough Indian chicks to write this whole article. He could have stopped if he really didn't like them. He could have not.
No, he
Like,
wanted-
nobody
he wanted a
forced him
fair
to
full
do
His
it.
review.
heart got
Oh,
so
what?
broken.
This guy is talking made this article.
He was like, "My heart broken. Let me write
This
this
guy
article."
dude looks like the Michelin man, like
But the article goes from like the picture is of like the Miss America, right? That's who it is. Yeah, they're unattractive. They're prudes. They're self-loathing. They're feminists.
oh my god.
I love that a reason is they're feminists. Oh my god, number 5, they're mentally ill.
Jeez.
I mean, can't argue with that one.
Oh my god.
Shay.
Yo,
Look,
I can't believe that someone wrote. And there's
I just think mans can't handle it.
Yeah, legit. Like, what the? I don't know.
but could you imagine? I found this article when I was like a freshman in high school, and this like really ruined everything for me for a second.
Niyati found this
Traumatized
article
my
by
whole-
searching up why white guys don't like Indian girls.
I was like, "Are Indian people attractive?" And this was the first thing that popped up. I was like, very cool."
Oh
Thanks.
my god.
yo, the comments
Thanks,
are
Matt.
even the comments are even funnier. There's some
They
people that are
are.
like, this was uncalled for, like being very nice about it. But then there's one that says, where'd it go? Oh, they're typically ugly, sure, but when they're hot.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Oh
But-
God.
Mostly it's like people roasting the guy who wrote it.
We should take him to the white men and brown girls
Yes.
event
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
and then be like,
idea.
yo, these are all your options.
Yeah, but I don't know
Exactly.
if we can rely on that event to like change his
Oh
mind.
yeah.
True.
He might be like, "Yep, this is the prime example." Just kidding.
Oh.
Indian girls, you're beautiful. I want to know if anybody else read this article and like had a traumatizing experience
agrees.
like Niyati. Or agrees, yeah. Hey, some of those things have to be right. So, he's on to
2 of them are, so.
All right. Well, yeah, sometimes I just like to share like certain articles and stuff that are just like wild, but feel free to send over anytime that you guys find anything interesting, the listeners, that you want us to talk about. Let's get on with our stranger today. So our stranger today is somebody who just hit their 10-year mark of sobriety, has a very interesting story about addiction and all that he's overcame. Very inspiring. So everyone, please welcome Neil Harman.
Zoom life, right? Yeah.
It's nice and artsy.
Yeah, man, made it comfortable.
You got the leaves on the side.
That's like a 3-year thing in the making. I have no idea what kind of plant it is. People give me a lot of shit about that.
Are they
I just
real?
know it grows. It's a weed. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. It is.
It's a nice
Yeah.
touch.
It works, right? I'm proud of
works.
it. It's like
Yeah.
my thing that like I gotta water, take care of it, nurture it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm responsible for it.
There you go. Have you been keeping up with what's been going on with the NBA?
I mean, yes. I mean, I tune in. I don't watch games like I once did, probably, but definitely just through Instagram, and I tune in every so often to watch a game. But yeah, man, it's exciting. And I mean, I live in Brooklyn, so there's like a lot of just craze around the Harden trade and Kyrie
You guys
and KD
got
being here.
the Nets.
So,
The Nets going on.
Yeah.
Did you see the lady yelling at LeBron?
I did see that. Yeah.
What do you make of LeBron? Like, are you one of those people that are like a fan of his and his greatness, or are you like, yeah, he's a crybaby? Like,
No, dude, I'm a supporter.
Nice.
okay,
Yeah, I'm a supporter. I mean, like the guy, whenever I think you're that good, there's going to be naysay, there's going to be critics and whatever. But I was born in 1990. So as much as MJ was like the pinnacle of basketball at that time, like I couldn't appreciate it. I couldn't really watch and like understand what was happening. But with LeBron James, like I feel like I've witnessed, as he would, like I'm watching it. Yeah.
There's a popular opinion going around. I think especially in the recent years, because it used to always be, those two guys pinned up against each other, MJ or LeBron, right? And it's like old generation versus new generation. A lot of people nowadays I hear are saying that they like MJ as a player, but LeBron as a human being. Do you see that?
I could, for sure. I mean, the guy's a humanitarian. I think he takes like every opportunity to, the I Promise school or whatever. I mean, he like has used his platform, and I mean, there's a lot of people too that just kind of like acknowledge that this is a guy from the time, what was he, like 16, 17 years old when he was on Sports Illustrated, and
the chosen
never.
one.
Yeah, that's right. The chosen one has never like had bad press outside of like he complains to the refs and this that as far as his character is concerned, I think he's a lock, man. Like he's a role model and does a lot of good with his money, and I'm here for it.
Plus having to deal with like social media in general.
Yeah.
Like Michael Jordan never had to, and he had all those other issues. Imagine MJ trying to explain like all the gambling and all the different
sure.
controversies.
On every story.
For sure. I mean, that was kind of what was so insightful about the Last Dance documentary that came out. It was like the one thing, as much as the press was like surrounding everything Michael Jordan, there wasn't social media to kind of like really embellish some of that stuff, run with certain narratives, complicate stories, whatever. So I can't imagine, dude. Can't imagine.
He could just like hide away if he wanted to, and that was.
I mean, in so many ways, like I think he has. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
like he's kind of done that. You know what I mean? Like he avoided the spotlight, and not for nothing, I think it was a lot of like LeBron coming out and being as active as he was that kind of perpetuated MJ into this almost like forced, like I've got to do good with my money too, and he has been much more, I think, like in the spotlight around giving and doing all sorts of stuff, whatever. So
Yeah, you're around a lot of like exciting sports, even though with I guess the Knicks or the Jets, it's not really that great, but there's the Giants and the Nets, and baseball is always in New York. Are you like a into the New York fandom of sports now, or no?
I mean, I'm a fan of. I grew up right outside of Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah, so that's what I was gonna say. You don't have any like professional teams in Virginia.
No. I mean, like, so what we did do, I mean, the Nationals weren't a team yet. So it was cool living in Maryland, obviously, like where I met you, because I did have like an affinity to the Orioles. Because when we were in Richmond, we would go all the way to Baltimore to watch the Orioles play.
Wow.
But as far as like DC sports were concerned, you know, the Washington football team was a thing, and my dad was a fan, and you know, he got to see them in their heyday, like win a lot of championships, and that was cool. But it was really tough to like actually be like, you know, that dedicated fan on DC sports. I don't really know hockey. I know the Capitals like are something people get excited about, but I don't know hockey that well, and so as far as like football, basketball, I mean, the Wizards, when I was in Maryland, I would go down and see the Wizards play pretty regularly. But I'm a fan of just like, there's so much just cool stuff to me about like basketball and football in particular.
Yeah. We have a lot of people that kind of go in all different types of directions around the DMV area, because there's a lot of, you know, these kind of imaginary lines that people draw with like, you know, oh, I was born here, my parents grew up liking them or whatever. So we don't have like as much. I think Baltimore with the Ravens is like the most, I guess, you know, proud we are.
That's
like,
definitely a proud fan base. Yeah, definitely a proud fan base for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, it was cool too.
Did you see that a lot when you were in Maryland?
Well, what year did the Ravens win their last Super Bowl against San Francisco? What was that, like 2013, 14, something like that? Maybe even earlier, 12?
Maybe. I think it was the 2012 season, maybe.
Okay, so I was there for the Super Bowl.
Oh, wow.
And so I mean, so it was obvious that people had something to root for, and you got the Ray Lewis and the Terrell Suggs type vibes. You know what I mean? Like people, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. People were into it, and so I get it, and I think by nature of me like being around that, now I too have an affinity for Baltimore, especially with you know, the runs that they've put together of late, and it's cool to watch.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting, and we would always get excited about it because we like grew up just waiting for that moment, and we were too little to see it when it happened the first time. But yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, you made your way over to a little town called Bel Air, Maryland. You're from Richmond. Before we get into like your whole story and stuff, like what is the main reason that you came over to the middle of nowhere, Bel Air, Maryland? It was just you, right?
Dude, I first of all, it is like a weird, dramatic, kind of like unconventional story. But I didn't know where I was going. I mean, the short of it, I mean, yeah, we can get into it, but I was in rehab as a 19-year-old, just like clueless. And they were like, hey, there's this little like recovery community in this town called Bel Air. And I honestly kind of, you know, associated that with like this, you know, Ritz-Carlton, like California, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I was like, oh, cool. I guess I can go there, you know? And then all of a sudden we're driving through and like we're passing the Kohl's, and my mom, you know, what is that, 24, 22, whatever it is. My mom's like, oh, look, you can work there. And I'm like, wait a minute. Where are we? You know what I mean?
So wait, your family was with you, or they were dropping you off?
Dropping me off,
okay.
Yeah. So I ended up in Bel Air because I went to a sober living. There was a place called, I think they're still around there, a place called Maryland Recovery Partners. And they had a host of like, you know, halfway house, sober living, transitional living, whatever you want to call them, but for like a step down, extended care for people who were, you know, in some form of rehabilitation for drug and alcohol use. So I was this like 19-year-old lost kid that had gotten into all sorts of trouble back in Richmond. And they had made arrangements like, look, going back to Richmond's not in your best interest. We need to kind of, you know, turn a chapter, start over. We know of this vibrant young people's community where like recovery is flourishing. People are like getting and staying sober. We want to get you there. And I was kind of like at this just desperate spot to say, okay, sure, like whatever, just send me. And again, that's when my parents picked me up from the treatment center where, you know, I did a 28-day stint, and they drove me up 95, and I ended up in Bel Air.
Yeah, I never know how this stuff works, because I only recently I was watching Breaking Bad, and my only like knowing of how that system possibly works is like Jesse Pinkman when he's getting sent to rehab and he hates it, and it's like, you know, all these people that are either they're trying to be like, oh, like let's you know, revive ourselves, and then there's people that are really not into it. Like was that kind of Go ahead, Shamir.
I was gonna say, like, I feel like in those shows, a lot of the times they paint it as like very bad place, even though it's like supposed to be good for you.
Is it
well,
a mixed bag or what was it like?
Yeah, dude. I mean, so that could potentially open up Pandora's box just around like a lot of what so there's the piece too where like I've had the opportunity to become like professionally involved with the treatment landscape, and well, I think that the kind of pop culture depiction of treatment and recovery at times can be accurate, like kind of in both veins of portraying it as like this kind of gnarly, superficial, weird, like why are we really here? But at the same time, there is like I was 14 the first time like a court mandated me to go to this outpatient center, and that was like, I mean, it was just, you know, there was no real I mean, the people were educated, but it wasn't. I don't know. I was a 14-year-old who is like, can you remember Dare? You know, kind of similar to the Dare programs, like just say no type
your
vibes.
School and then just say it. Yeah, they would show you some films and stuff. And as a kid, you were mostly like, oh yeah, like I don't need
that.
Yeah, dude. And it was kind of cheesy. And so when I went to this program that I was court mandated to do, it was my first possession charge, and kind of by all accounts too, even like, you know, was just a kid experimenting, nothing ultra crazy, just, I don't know. I mean, definitely pushing the envelope, but got caught. And that was kind of like, especially back then, I was just like, I'm just unlucky. Like all sorts of guys and girls that I know are doing this. I just happened to get caught. And as a result, I'm dealing with this consequence that, you know, I'm legally now having to go to this outpatient thing. And, but what happened is I was kind of like, they had that certain rhetoric around like just say no, so what's like kind of I guess referred to as psychoeducation of you know what you're dealing with and the potential kind of, you know, consequences that arise from dependence and addiction, etc. But it was kind of like social hour because it was me and all the homies that like had also gotten caught, and we just kind of, you know, cut it up, made fun of it, compared notes, you know what I mean, like hung out afterwards. I mean, it was in a way to like the Pinkman kind of vibe. Like I was introduced to a whole bunch of other kids who just like liked the party like I did. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that's almost a little bit true where he started selling to like the other people that were in rehab.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, like you mentioned that you were 14. So let's get into that a little bit. Like what kicked off your path into addiction in the first place? Take us through it.
So the easy way to answer that, I think, is that just, and I think that at this point, hopefully I've become like an expert on myself because I lived it, and I'm not here to be an expert on anybody else. But I like, for me, I think that there was definitely a piece where I was just very easily bored, and also had kind of this mentality around like normalcy and how I wanted, like I was fascinated by subculture at a very young age, like, you know, pop rock or punk music, sorry, like, you know, the Blink 182 in the Green Days, and like I was fascinated by that whole like kind of thing, and didn't want to be kind of like the cookie cutter, go to school, get good grades, go to college, get married, white picket fence. Like I can really kind of remember like not being interested in any of that.
Is that happening a lot around Richmond?
Yeah, dude, I think that, I mean, it's you know, I played soccer. Like that was a huge passion of mine. I got my first drum set when I was, I think, in 5th grade. So that kind of like kicked off this whole like music and subculture. Like it introduced me to like a lot of different bands. And so I had this fascination with like, with just being different. But I will also say, like, as competitive as I was, I also had this thing where if I wasn't like the best, and this is where I was just self-centered to my core. Like if I wasn't the best, I didn't even want to play, you know, like if I wasn't going to be the guy and just have the spotlight, then it was kind of like, you know, it's not for me. I'm too cool for school. I was a punk. I was a total spoiled brat punk.
Were you good at sports?
That's probably part. Like I was decent enough. Like I got some accolades at an early age. Like there's this, there's this I guess it's considered like a farm team, the Richmond Kickers. It's kind of like they feed into the DC United MLS team, and I was probably, I guess, like 8th grade, so 12, 13, whatever that is, and played travel soccer, and they invited me to come be a part of their development team. And, you know, like there were some certain things where I was getting some notoriety and whatever. But what happened in the midst of that too was like all of a sudden I went from being like somebody that was really good and acknowledged as being really good to being around a bunch of other kids who were like really, really good. And I wasn't like the best anymore, you know, and not that I should even say I was ever the best, but that kind of was a bit of a paradigm shift. I didn't have the language,
Sure.
the kind of introspection to acknowledge like what was actually happening. But I think that kind of brought me down a peg, and I wasn't comfortable with that. So I started looking for alternative like ways to, you know, like what else can I
Get
do?
a kick out of something.
You know what I'm saying? So that's when all of a sudden drums became a thing because nobody was really playing music like that. And I said, oh, well, drums are going to be my identity. If I can't be that guy in soccer, I'm going to be this thing in music. And chased it. And again, that's like, it invited a lot of different bands and subculture and smoking weed and whatever. And I was just fascinated with like, you know, doing all that stuff. And again, was just kind of bored with the monotonous kind of Groundhog Day, go to school, whatever.
While you're in this culture, did you, like you said, you were interacting with people that like smoke weed and all that stuff? Were there like a lot of older kids and older people that you're interacting with while playing drums?
Yeah, I think that was there was the music piece, but I think more so it was just like nature of high school. It was right around my freshman year, and the way it's set up in Virginia, and it's probably similar in most places, but you know, kids predominantly go to public schools. You know, so I went to a elementary school where I think it was four county elementary schools fed into the middle school, and then from the middle school they feed into the high school. So developmentally, there's probably like, you know, a lot of weird things going on just for me, like, you know, puberty and whatever, and hormones, whatever. But I think when I went there, very probably similar to a lot of adolescents, like there was this fascination around, the older kids. And I think it's funny, like, now being 30 and looking at, you know, a 34-year-old, I'm like, oh, dude, we're like practically the same age. It's like we do the same shit, whatever. But when I was 14 and kids were 17, 18, it was like, oh, dude, they're grown-ups. You know what I mean?
That's so true. Yeah.
Right? So I was fascinated by, like, you know, they were driving, they were dating hot girls, they were, you know, whatever, and they were also drinking beers and smoking some weed. At least the ones that I was looking at, that I was like entertained by.
Yeah.
So there was all of a sudden this like intuitive almost thing that was like, oh, I want to be a part of that.
What was it? What was the thing that you tried? Do you remember the first time?
Yeah, first time was, I mean, just because accessibility. Well, it's not even that. Beer. I mean, my father. You know, growing up in Virginia, and especially to a father like my father, who I love and adore. I should make sure that like I mentioned that. But we had a lot of like, I was the kid that bought pink Converses and, you know, painted my fingernails black some days in school. And my dad was like this man's man, kind of, you know, like built his own construction company. Came from nowhere, like kind of hard, you know, he's a hard dude. So we had a lot of like, you know, my masculinity was all sorts of like, I don't know. And I kind of looked at him and was like, oh, dude, you're like tough, I guess, whatever. And I think that, you know, as things kind of progressed and opened up, that, I don't know, there was a piece of me that just like was fascinated by, again, these older kids and wanting to find an identity and be cool enough, and all the, you know, peer pressure type stuff that I'm sure all sorts of kids fall victim to. But for me personally, like, it became an immediate obsession. I was smoking weed the first time. I would drink my dad's beers because it was kind of like a rite of passage every so often, but they were gross when I was a kid. But weed was kind of the first thing. I think I was in 8th grade. And that was the thing, like, immediately obsessed. Like, oh, dude, this is cool, you know?
And how often were you like getting high?
Weekend Warrior vibes at first, you know what I mean? Like, but it was Monday through Friday. I don't know if you guys remember AIM or like Instant Messenger, but it was like, you go to school, you get off school, and then immediately, if I wasn't hanging out with anybody, I was on AIM. Like, where is it? Where are we going? What are we doing? And it was just like, that was the form of obsession, just planning it, strategizing it, needing to know about it, who's got it. And then by Friday, we'd have it all tied together and let's rip and run. And I mean, especially down south too, it was a lot of fun. 4-wheelers, shooting guns, chasing girls. Wow. I mean, getting in trouble. I mean, it was a lot of fun.
And then where did that take you? Did you go on to try other things?
Well, similarly to that, I mean, the Dare people aren't always wrong. They kind of, tried to plant a seed in me that like this, there's typically a progression here.
Like the gateway.
You know what I'm saying? And that's, in my case, I'm kind of a stereotype, but when I realized like, oh, everybody's making a hardcore deal about smoking weed, and it's not like, to me personally as the 14-year-old, like, know-it-all, it's not that big of a deal. It became like, okay, well, what else can we do that's probably not a big deal either? And stupidly, naively, me and some of the guys that I went to middle school and high school with, again, like a lot of us stayed close because we were soccer buddies, and some of them I'm still very close with, and was in one of their weddings and a couple of them. But anyways, we talk about this stuff too. There was also like this weird generational thing. A guy that rode my bus from elementary school had an older sister who, unbeknownst to us, we would soon come to find out, but she moved a lot of Oxycontin. And this was also like 2010. I now know this was like the precipice of the opiate epidemic. There wasn't even like a label to it yet. But what was happening, and I think, anecdotally, there's probably a lot of, like Big Pharma was pushing it. I mean, now there's lawsuits against like, all these different pharmaceutical manufacturers, Purdue, and I think there was another one yesterday even with like this huge $1 million settlement. But grandparents in kind of ordinary people with pain and chronic pain and cancer and certain ailments, like they were getting a lot of heavy duty narcotics, and they were right in people's medicine cabinets. So this dude that I rode the school bus with, his sister was unbeknownst to us, she was like, she had a lot of, she moved this stuff as like, that's how she made her money. And Michael, at a pretty young age, I mean, very young age, started learning kind of the ins and outs of what she would do and gained access to this stuff. I think that's how it went down. I'm pretty sure it was the sister that kind of like put the ball in motion. But before you know it, we're 8th, 9th, 10th graders, whatever. And there's this like hub of Oxycontin down the street from us. And we have no idea what we're playing with. And I remember being in 8th grade, and we went into the bathroom. It's kind of like, experimentation mode, like a lot of us, and put our hands out and bloop, bloop, bloop. We don't know what these pills are, but we know that they make us feel kind of funny and cool, and it breaks up the day and gives us a laugh and have something to talk about. And down the hatch, and that was the first time I did an Oxycontin. It wasn't like this like catastrophic snowball effect right away, but the wheels were spinning. I was quickly fascinated by like, oh,
you were getting like ideas of what else could this
And like
do?
it creeps in, right? Like you can't tell like, oh, you're addicted to it, right?
No, dude. Like for me, it was like it was a gradual progression. In so many ways, like I could say now, because I'm as old as I am and have been in recovery for as long as I have. 14 to 19. For most folks, like especially, as I am still in recovery and help people find recovery, like 14 to 19 is a pretty quick progression. But for me, from 14 to 19, again, like talking about like crucially developmental years, it was kind of it wasn't overnight. It happened gradually. But yeah, the wheels were definitely spinning, and I was fascinated.
You know what's interesting is like from my perspective, again, I was so ignorant to a lot of this because we had like, weed and alcohol, that was like a thing in high school. But to think about, like let's take pills and these types of things, even thinking about like the area, like we grew up in the suburbs, like Richmond is similarly the same thing. And what we were kind of fed was that, drugs, like the hardcore stuff and, the bad sort of criminal things are going down in the city, and black people are, controlling that and are getting involved in that. So as long as you stay away from that, you're good. And meanwhile, I don't know if you know this, but like the county you moved into, like we were one of the number one spots for a heroin epidemic. And I knew a lot of people later on that from a young age started getting into like all those things with, opioids and all of that. And it just kind of flew over my head because of what I was fed, this sort of information, not like directly, but kind of in the air. You get what I mean?
Yeah. Like that problem exists on the other side of the tracks and we don't deal with it here.
And anytime it was like in the suburb community, it was always like, oh my God, like, you know, these people are from such a good family. Like, how could this happen? And there was so much confusion. And then we started realizing, oh, okay, so like, yeah, this is not, this has nothing to do with wealth.
No.
This has nothing to do with race.
Obviously, fascinating
like,
story. This happened. Yeah. Okay, so Harford County got gnarly, and it happened like right as I showed up, because what happened as much as I got off the, I got to Bel Air in October. It was my sobriety date, October 28, 2010. Is my first day in Bel Air is my first sober breath, and what I watched happen, and that's actually another story because I just explained how like I came from treatment to Bel Air, but I was getting drunk in treatment, which was another like it was crazy stuff, whatever. But I showed up and watched, like that was something that actually probably helped me stay sober, because a lot of my friends who I was like getting sober with started really falling victim to like hardcore, like overdose. I lost a lot of friends early on. Like my girlfriend passed away from an overdose. Two of my like really close sober brothers died from overdoses. So it was a wake up call. But I remember doing the Owl magazine and going to, they had a town hall meeting. It was the first of its kind and that actually was at HCC. And Claudia's like, oh, I want you to cover this, because she knew my story. I was very kind of, open and transparent. It's not like I was like, going around like I'm sober, everybody, but, just by nature of getting to know people, they find out, whatever. So she wanted me to go cover this thing. So I went and covered it. And I can't remember the gentleman's name, but there was like a significant turnout to this town hall meeting. And it was primarily about the overdose rates of Harford County and what was happening. And this black guy, and probably one of the only people of color who's in the town hall, brave, like with courageously raises his hand. And I said, I mean no disrespect when I say this, I'm paraphrasing it, and I don't want to necessarily like butcher it, but he was acknowledging that like now people care because it's a white people problem. Like when all of a sudden, when it was a black people problem, the crack epidemic, it was just say no, the war on drugs, et cetera, et cetera. But then all of a sudden, when it was a bunch of white kids in the burbs fatally, passing as a result of their addiction and its power, like then all of a sudden it became a medical kind of concern, right? And I was, I guess, like, interestingly enough, I was right at that, like, that kind of paradigm shift, watching that happen. And I think that my first experience, like, actually acknowledging that it was happening was probably for the Owl magazine at that town hall meeting.
Wow.
Yeah. Wait, so go back to the after you've gone through all of that stuff when you're trying to get treatment. You said you were getting drunk in treatment.
Yeah, dude. This goes to show like the progression of what eventually came to be, the inevitable reality I found myself in, is that like I lacked a mental defense to stay away from the stuff, and that stuff could have been booze, weed, pharmaceuticals, other narcotics. Like if it was in front of me, I did not possess the capacity. Like my prefrontal cortex couldn't operate. It just like went
you
haywire.
weren't afraid at all.
Dude, it wasn't even an afraid thing. It was like, because there was times where I was like, this is dangerous. But that was kind of like the reinforcing shame of it all. Like I still had some level of conscientiousness to acknowledge like, dude, you're going down a wrong path. But I literally couldn't stop myself. There would be times, there would be brief intervals where like, I could put it away for a moment, but inevitably that like insidious thing would kick up and I just couldn't, like no mental defense. So I find myself in treatment willingly. I acknowledge, like I admitted myself into this 28-day inpatient treatment center in Williamsburg,
You were 19
Virginia.
then when you did that?
I was 19. I was lonely and broke, and had like the dramatic went from this, this kid that played soccer and had it going on, and AP student, whatever. Another kind of, whatever consequence in 10th grade did happen. I got expelled from my high school indefinitely. That's a whole nother situation. But I admit myself into this treatment center, and there's, again, like some Jesse Pinkman vibes. There's a Shell station on the other side of the fence of this treatment center. And this is before too. I mean, like, I don't know. I'm sure treatment has been good for a long time in a lot of different ways. But I don't think it was then what it is today necessarily. Because again, like the suburban white kid, like a lot of people started putting concentration into data and research and like how can we like treat this as a disease as opposed to like punishing it as a crime. And so this treatment center I went to, great treatment center, God bless them. There was a Shell station on the other side of the street. A couple of the older dudes, because I'm 19, a couple of the 21 plus dudes were jumping this fence, grabbing 40s and coming back and drinking in treatment. I remember saying to myself, like, that's nuts. That's nuts. I'm voluntarily here to get my shit together and get on the right track. But then before you know it, like these guys asked me if I wanted to join them, and I like all of a sudden mental blank spot, and I've got a beer in my hand, and I'm like in treatment. So that also for me personally was a, you know, like everything happens for a reason type, you know, situation, and it really retrospect is 2020. Like that helped increase my understanding of like this is a problem for you. And you cannot do this alone. You need to ask for help. You need to take the suggestions. I could have fought tooth and nail to go to the extended care program at Bel Air. I could have said, you know, middle fingers up, not going to do it. I'll figure it out my way, couch surf, etc. But that experience kind of like helped me understand like, oh, the depths of this. Like, dude, you got to get this under control.
From 14 to 19, how is your family reacting to everything?
It's important to acknowledge too. Like, I mean, you were talking about like I come from a good home. I don't, you know, I mean, like, I don't think that addiction or drug abuse is like, you know, by any stretch, like you have to come from a broken home or like, you know, a lot of dysfunction. Like my mom traveled a lot because she was a hard worker and was a sales manager for a paper company. My dad, small blue collar, created his own construction company. My grandmother was around. We call her Nanny. She was there to help raise me because mom traveled a lot. Dad was working hard. So very much grew up with this, like, you know, this moral compass, knew right from wrong. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, you know, Southern hospitality type vibes. But despite all of that, I still got just like chasing fun and thinking I know what's best and suffering just from so much self-centeredness. I mean, dude, I mean, not for nothing, like from a young age, I was like disciplinarily, like whatever, like I got into a lot of trouble. And not before drugs and alcohol were even a thing. Like I was the class clown, looking to stir the pot, making fun of the, you know, the teachers. Even in elementary school, like I significantly struggled to not get in trouble. Had a bit of an angel in 4th and 5th grade, this woman, Donna Corey, who kind of took all of my craziness and helped me kind of like understand like how to utilize some of that in a productive way. And she really kind of like, you know, Neil, you can be a leader. You can use all this charisma for good. She made me, this is a funny, just I think something I haven't thought about in forever, but she made me, run for the SCA president of the elementary school. She was like, you know, you can use it, whatever. And I did, and I actually won. But because I was such like this kid that got in trouble, the principal tried to intervene and be like, I don't know if you're the best representation of this. And like my mom had to get involved. You know what I mean? Like just whatever, funny stuff now. But the writing was on the wall to an extent. And yeah, and then all of a sudden, by the time, you know, drugs and alcohol were introduced to the mix, it was just kind of like, oh, dude, now we're running.
So did they ever question themselves, blame themselves? Like, where did we go wrong? Why is Neil this way?
Yeah, dude. I mean, if we wanted to, we could get pretty dramatic. I mean, it was like, mom was crying a lot. Mom was crying a whole lot, and dad was just cold and shut down and like, kid, I can't figure you out.
Did that hurt you too? Seeing that?
It did, but it at that age, and is just incompetent in a way that I was, it made me angry because my whole perspective and delusionally was look the other way and let me live. Like, I'm fine. Like, if you guys weren't as strict or didn't have these rules or et cetera, like, you know, I'd figure it out. I'd make it. And it was just total, just egomania, adolescent, just like, you know, grandiosity. But it what that did is it created like a level of contention between me and my parents. So when mom is crying, I didn't possess the emotional capacity or empathy to understand, like, dude, you are playing a part in this. You are actually like not playing a part in it. You are like the part in this. Like, you're the one that's contributing to all of this madness. But I was so oppositional and just so like lost that I didn't see it that way. It all angered me. The only way that it became self-evident to me, I mean, the consequences, getting kicked out of school, didn't really wake me up to a more or lesser degree. What really was the thing that like finally I woke up to was that I was alone and broke. Like, my parents had cut me off. They were decent enough and loved me and they did try to kick me out one time, and I left and couch surfed for a while. But I was at my parents' house, and just like it was so obvious to me on an intrinsic level, not an extrinsic level, on an intrinsic level. Like, dude, it's not happening. You're not, like, suicidality came into play. I was just very lost and depressed, and had no one else to blame. You know.
I think when you say, like, I come from a good family and all that, it's not just this case, but many cases where whenever we take a shift in something, we feel the need to say something like that because of what our communities represent. And for example, like Shamir and I, we come from like a South Asian community or like a Muslim community, and we have these super high standards. I think a lot of immigrants in general would have this super high standard of, our communities don't do this stuff. And then as we're growing up, we're like the generations start coming in and shifting. You start seeing a lot of kids in our communities going towards these things. And then everyone asks, oh, what happened at home? What was, it must be something that the parents didn't teach or something like that. But as you said, it's just about like the crowd that sometimes you're around, the boredom, things like that. And for you, from a young age, it seems like, you were that kid that kind of needed that teacher to be there a while, that kind of, put you in that position. And I can actually relate to that because I was a huge troublemaker when I was little. I used to get in trouble all the time, and I was the one sibling out of my other, two, that they were always, my parents were always like, why can't you just like stay in school, behave, like, not get detention, get straight A's, things like that. But we don't all click the same. And sometimes we go towards different vices. For me, I was very blessed and lucky that I found something early on, which was like creativity and trying to explore that. Not everybody gets that same opportunity. So when you show up and this is why I wanted you on the show, is because when I saw you, when I met you for the first time, we were working on this magazine together. I was the art director there, and there was a lot of really fun and unique people. And of course, Claudia, the advisor, who's been on this show before, was so enthusiastic and, really just empowered people. I saw you and I was like, man, like, this guy has so much charisma and he's so confident. Like, but then I related to, because I'm like, I feel like he just found this. Was that something that you started getting excited towards? It was like journalism and photography and all that kind of stuff. Like, did that start to become some sort of vice for you, or what?
Yeah, as far as healthy outlet, healthy form of expression. And that is, I think, in a lot of ways, like, music was for a minute, but then when I got sober, like, I needed to find something. I needed to find something where I think it came down to an identity thing. Like, Neil, who are you? And what happened is, through the recovery community, I started like putting myself around other sober people who, the kind of approach that is, as far as, the spiritual component, as far as the work that for me personally in my recovery, what I deem my recovery, like what I found. But then when I started going back to school. I was probably, I was like probably 3-4 years sober when I first met you. So I had been doing some work. I'd been like really dedicated to like, okay, let's practice some radical acceptance, day at a time. For me personally, like, find my meetings, channel like my mentorship, like do the thing, stay in the middle of the pack. I had been working a lot of restaurant jobs. I was like, okay, I'm not trying to be a line cook at Applebee's forever. And said, there's Hartford Community College right down the road. I was once upon a time like a good student when I showed up. So now I'm actually motivated enough to show up. I think I was probably 23. And so I started showing up, and I used to write all the time in treatment. That became like a healthy outlet for me. Journaling, expression, like all just. So through that form, that medium, I started like looking for different kind of like, okay, well, what can this turn into? Is it, short stories? And at HCC, I took a short story class and a creative writing course with, I think it was like Professor Fox, if you remember her, dude. I mean, so like I started trying to channel like, how can I like turn this expression into something more than me just kind of like putting my thoughts on a piece of paper. And I found like profound.
So you were trying to find some like sort of purpose, some sort of thing to feel important for.
That's tied to that identity. Like, who am I? So
yeah.
I remember like taking a break in between one of the classes and saw like you probably made the thing, the advertisement, like
a flyer,
are you interested? Yeah, flyer. Yeah. Like, are you interested in joining this? And I remember being like light bulb, kind of like, epiphany, spiritual moment, like just a clarity, whatever. Like, oh, dude, maybe this is the thing. And walked over and introduced myself to Claudia, and like who that guy was as comparatively to that 19-year-old kid showing up. Dude, I mean, there's some semblance of him when the 19-year-old kid, but like the fact that I even walked over there and introduced myself, and like that was like a significant deal. And
it's always people like that answer to the flyer though. It's truly like a movie, Who am I? Oh, look at this. Is this a sign?
Yeah.
Yeah,
you know
dude.
what you were like? This is what I remember when I first sort of like, had interactions with you. You were like somebody who just figured out that they're a person. Like,
Wow.
Like really, it was like, oh my God, like he was telling me like, yo, Frost, get this done, get that done. I'm like, what? Like, it'll get done. But he's like, let's go. Cause he just like seemed so
Super
excited.
Yeah.
That like there was time
Right.
or something like that. Is that accurate to say?
That's very accurate. And I think that's a part of kind of like my ism, as far as like an ism is kind of an expression in the recovery world, like alcoholism. There's the alcohol piece, but the ism is like all the other emotional kind of mentality thing behind it. And that's a part of my ism, is that when I'm involved in something, like I really want to be involved in it. And in particular with the Al magazine, that was the first time outside of like work in a recovery community that I was being interjected into something cool that I was like interested in. And it was that much more important because you guys, like a lot of my fellowship and socialization in early recovery was purely with other people in recovery. And when you see us in the grocery store, it's not like we're aliens, dude. Like we fucking blend in. But when I met you guys in the context of, academia, that was like, it was important for me because I was expanding kind of like, I don't have to be shackled to only like hiding in meetings in recovery. Like I can be a person. And yeah, well, what you saw is me like first tapping in 3 years sober, but first tapping into like, you're a person out here.
Yeah. No, that was really cool to see. And we're lucky that we got to even hear your story in that way. Because it's like, it reminds you of the things that you take for granted. And we were like, I think we went to the DC trip or something.
Yeah.
And, you were all gung-ho on that trip too. And it was just like, you see somebody who is not taking any moment for granted and is just like, let me go all in on this thing. And then you're like, you're inspired because you're like, yeah, I guess like, let's do this thing all the way. And it's really nice to see that.
You guys were so perfect too, man. I mean, like there was just so much warmth in acceptance, and it made it very easy to just kind of like fall right in place. You know what I mean? Like, and just in being authentically me, obviously by nature of just like me being transparent about my recovery, because that was like a significant deal for me, especially getting sober young. And like, how am I going to socialize as a real person when I'm making the decision to stay sober? Because I know I need to, like, because I know that I don't want to go back there. How am I going to date again? How am I going to make friends that whatever? And you guys were kind of the first exposure and beautifully, and again, just kind of like otter God type stuff. Like you were one of the first group of people to be like, dude, you can be yourself, and we don't really care. You're not that important. You know what I mean? Like,
And
just
were you like afraid at first? When you first met them?
I will say with them, no, because I was like, there was another exposure type moment, whatever, and for work. Like that was probably the first place I worked at Applebee's, where everybody was like, you know, kind of like on the same wave that I once was on. But what was really helpful in that experience is realizing like I don't have to go back to being that guy to still be a part of hanging out and whatever. You know what I mean? Like I would have some healthy boundaries in the workplace, but like I would meet guys and we'd go play FIFA at my apartment after a shift. You know what I'm saying? So like it gave me like, oh dude, you can be just a normal person. It's not that big of a deal. Like you're sober. Again, you're not that important. Nobody really cares.
It's important to find also people that are likely have unique stories, and all the people that you kind of came across in that magazine. I always say this, like those were some of the best group of people because they're all weirdly themselves.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
And it's fine. Like you realize that, oh, like they are comfortable in being this unique individual, and you don't really get to meet that many weird people at the same time because usually everyone, it seems like, is the same and they're
right.
you know, cookie cutter, and you got to try to fit in that way, but they celebrate your uniqueness and your difference, and that's super important.
Yeah, I don't know if there's like a correct answer or anything, but like, do you think that's important for anyone going through recovery to find like a weird group of people and how they would go about doing that?
I think I would frame it from the perspective is important that you find it. So that, and this is what ultimately, I mean, I think what we're talking about here is community, and community has been my saving grace since day one. I mean, the reason that I even entertained the idea of staying sober is because I was introduced to this community that made it look attractive. The reason I continue to stay sober to this day is because I'm a part of a community that like it's much different than it once was, because I've gotten older in this thing, I've gotten wiser in this thing, but I'm still very much in that community. So for anybody who's entering recovery, I think it is fundamental that they find a community where they can inevitably be vulnerable, they can be authentic, they can be themselves without like harsh criticism and judgment. And that's what I found in that program MRP. That's what I found in 12-step rooms, and then inevitably that's what I found at the Owl magazine, dude, hanging out with all you guys.
Yeah, and that seemed to spark something in you that I remember. You know, we you were on Instagram, and I was keeping up with you, and I wanted to see, you know, what you were up to next, but you kind of took the world by storm and went for New York City. You went to NYU.
Yeah.
What was that whole like, you know, transition? Were you like, all right, I can do anything now, and I'm gonna try to,
from a guy who was broke to going to one of the most expensive cities in the world?
Yeah, people tried to warn me about that. I should have maybe listened a little bit. Claudia was one of them, dude. I remember sitting at the, you know, in that back classroom, and God bless her. She wasn't wrong, and I don't want to say this like out of spite or anything, but she was like really trying to be a voice of reason for me. She was like, you know, NYU's cool, that's great, but is it realistic? Is it practical? I think that she also,
so you knew
like,
you wanted to do NYU.
So you guys kicked up this journalism thing in me, and I was like, this would be a cool, purposeful profession, but how the hell am I going to do it? And I started with you guys, took Claudia's classes, got involved in the multimedia studies, and was, you know, at a community college level and was showing up for class. And a lot of those like principles that are tied to early recovery, like how to stay sober at a day at a time, are very much transformed into all of my affairs. So then what would happen is I would participate in the classroom. I would stay after class. I'd seek out, you know, Claudia, Dr. Halleck, Susan Meyer, like these fundamental mentors that I had at HCC. I would get to know them. I would ask for their help. So what happened is I started getting decent grades. And with those grades tied to the journalism kind of, you know, enthusiasm, I said, where can I go and what can I do? And I almost just started talking it into existence. And it's not like I did that intentionally, but when, like in small talk, even like when people would ask me like, okay, what's after HCC? I'd be like, well, this is what I'm thinking. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm really cool. I like this journalism stuff. I'm getting good grades. I'm going to be able to transfer to a decent school, I think, and maybe even get some financial aid because of like, you know, et cetera, decent grade, scholarship stuff. And before you know it, just by nature of having those conversations, and this is where the recovery community is so powerful. I told Claudia the day that she was trying to like talk some reason into me, I said, Claudia, I can't go into the grocery store without seeing like 5 people I know from the recovery community. I know for a fact, like that can launch me into something. And can you imagine New York City of all places? Like if I go to the grocery store in Hartford County, like that's got to transform into something bigger in New York City.
I don't get it.
Sure,
what are you trying to say?
like that. Think about it from a density perspective. Like there's
Like
so
you'll
many
see more people recovering.
Not even just see more people, but know them. And that's become a reality, is that starting in Hartford County, right, where there's, I don't know what the population there is. It's not crazy big, but literally there's so
small.
many people in recovery there. So many. So if you take that onto a scale of New York City, think about all the people in recovery in New York City. Like there's going to be a crazy amount of people in recovery.
So you were thinking that you're going to work in that sort of field in New York.
Well, actually, it was
That's what you were-
just from socialization, just literally peer-to-peer
okay.
Be
connections.
around those people.
community,
Yeah,
like you were saying.
Yeah, well, and it was more so tied to the fact that like I know that I know somebody in those grocery stores, like symbolically, right? That
Okay.
knows somebody in that big mecca of New York City. And again, I would just kind of speak it into existence. And what happened is, sure enough, this dude Matt Villalobos happened to be very close friends with this guy Zach Clark, and said, if you want to go to New York, you should talk to this guy Zach. So I emailed Zach, and before you know it, like he's like, yeah, come up, and not only from a recovery perspective, can I introduce you to some friends, some meetings, etc. I also help run a business and could potentially, because I also worked in treatment. Shout out Ashley. I worked down there and outside of Baltimore at a treatment center for, I don't know, for 3-4 years. I left. That's another thing that started happening. I left. I left Applebee's, started going to school, and got a job at this treatment center. And my only credential was the fact that like I got sober young. But it was also an interesting time because there wasn't a lot of young employees that got sober young. So I became kind of like this interesting dude for the patients in treatment, when the young people were kind of like, you know, freaking out, maybe in a level of denial, questioning things, a little ambivalent about, you know, kind of what they were doing, where they were going. Counselors and therapists and doctors, I would get called in to talk to those people and just get to know them and say, like, kind of share some of my experience. And through that, dude, just like the social landscape of my whole experience in Bel Air transformed, because what would happen is I became a guy at that treatment center, and then similar to myself, a lot of people would leave Ashley for extended care and go to the same sober living that I went through. So there was this kind of like, I met them at treatment and got to watch them transform their lives. And so before you know it, like there's this robust community that I know very intimately, and started talking to people, and they were like, yeah, I talked to this guy, Zach, and I'd been working in treatment, and Zach offered me a job.
Wow.
You could have like ran away from that world, but you know, went back towards it. Was it because you felt like you could really play a part in giving back, or was it that it was an easy thing to do, or was it both?
It was both. So I moved to New York still very much like interested in the journalism stuff. But it was kind of like this duality, because I was in love with helping people. And a lot of that stemmed from, again, like kind of mentioning just the amount of death that I witnessed early on. Me and he's like my brother, Tommy. I think you might, for us, maybe even met
Yeah, I
Tommy.
remember him.
Yeah, so me and Tommy, me and Tommy got we were the only two 19-year-olds in this when we got sober together. He's my day one. Like literally, I think I was at MRP for a week before he showed up, and we just stuck together like glue, because we were like, dude, what are you doing? I was like, dude, I don't know. What are you doing? You know what I mean? Like we're both kind of lost kids out here. And that's kind of where the community started in a way. And we just allowed ourselves to build and build and build. And it got to a point where we just, I don't know. I mean, we got so it's not like I made the conscious decision to do it. But when we started, like Jamie, God bless her soul, she passed away. She was my girlfriend of a year. Ryan Morton, Dustin. There's a long list, and it's pretty tragic stuff. But me and Tommy witnessed a lot of death, and unintentionally, what we decided to do is start helping people. It's not like we ever sat down and said, "Hey, man, we need to put our capes on and get out there and help people."
It's also something that you know, so that helps.
For sure. Again, like going back, like I was an expert in my story, right? And I knew that there was a lot of other people who had very similar stories to mine. But what the difference was, I was a little bit further down the road because I had gone to treatment. I had stayed sober since, that program after treatment. I was living amongst the living, going to school, meeting people like you. So all of a sudden I had like this hope to my story. People would enter treatment and I could go back and report like, hey guys, like, I don't want to say I figured it out, but my life is good today as a result of some stuff.
Someone to relate to.
Right. And as a result of that, me and Tommy got to help a lot of people. Again, simultaneously, one of the weird kind of like culture things that's happening is that opiate epidemic. So a lot of young people for the first time really ever start entering treatment at a rapid rate. And me and Tommy, who are a little bit ahead of the curve, just by pure circumstance, happened to be, there to say, we're here to help. So that's kind of like I this duality thing. Like I went to New York being like, okay, I can work in this because I have experience doing it. I do love it, but I am interested on a personal level in the journalism stuff. But what the journalism stuff, once I realized like how just cutthroat and competitive and like you got to start like at the bottom up here in the city, I was like, I'm already leaps and bounds as far as like working in treatment in this recovery space. Like I'll just do this because I seem to be pretty good at it and people acknowledge that I'm pretty good at it. So I just ran with it.
Yeah. Just so you know, if you're ever still interested in it, there's plenty of ways to do journalism today, including including this podcast that we're doing right now.
Right.
But it's essentially just telling stories and telling the people of what's going on. So, I would say be creative about that and think what's one way that I could do that. Like there's photography and journalism go hand in hand, and all these video platforms that we have nowadays. So, if you're ever interested in that, like don't ever give up on that dream because there's plenty of ways to still do it.
You're right. You're definitely right.
Yeah.
It also comes down to like a time thing. And what's happened is in this certain space, like I've definitely like absorbed a crazy amount of responsibilities. And now I've got to like learn how to manage my time and find, but you're right, dude. Like I need, like, that's such a, especially because this whole thing, like recovery, drug and alcohol addiction, it's still very taboo. And in certain cultures, extremely taboo. And a lot of people still struggle to access quality treatment. So I think the more like kind of the megaphones can be out there, like just saying like, hey dude, like this can be so normal. You can go to bachelor parties, you can go to Ravens games. Like you can be a normal dude out here. But the fact is, like when nobody's really looking, I'm tapping into my my medicine and going to some meetings and following some direction. But like it's not the end of the world by any means.
Yeah. What I'm scared about, actually, I've like thought about this recently, but especially after this like whole COVID incident, how much addiction and that people have probably gotten into because everyone's so alone and people are separated. Like I'm scared of the future and what is going to happen. Has that something that crossed your mind? Yeah,
well, intuitively so. When this first thing, you just knowing what I know, and there's this cliche that addiction is the disease of disconnection, meaning that like very similar to how I was explaining to you guys. Like I got lonely because my behavior was ridiculous, and there's a lot of just dramatic stuff that I would get myself into. So people naturally were like, dude, you go figure it out over there, leave us out of it. So I think when all of a sudden you combine that with like very literally speaking disconnection because of this whole, virus and pandemic. I mean, like the New York Times has written a couple articles of late acknowledging that like this treatment. It's a weird time in treatment too. It always is for that matter, but because it's also like these treatment centers are community housing. So you're inviting patients to come in, but at the same time, like, have to keep them safe. And then at the same time, when they leave, they're completely alone. So it's this kind of paradox of where's that middle ground. And that is, I mean, professionally, what I do on a daily basis is try to figure out that finesse. Like, how can we do this safely? We've got, I mean, I work for Release Recovery, and we've got 3 sober living homes, very similar to an MRP that I went through. Like, after treatment, people come to us for transitional living. And we invite people in, but I've got in the city right now, I've got 7 dudes, and it's like, how do we do this safely? And not for nothing, like, since March, we've been figuring this out. Like, it's craziness. And then when they leave us, I mean, a lot of people are then, you know, meetings are on Zoom now, as far as like recovery meetings are on Zoom now. I mean, it's like, there's no more fellowshipping at the diner after the meeting. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of this stuff has been just completely changed. So it's an interesting time.
Similarly to what like Shamir was saying, you know, there's a lot of people that are getting forming addictions, and from what I've sort of seen, you know, there's a lot of other things that you could get into that have similar effects as drugs and alcohol when it comes to your mind wanting that thing over and over again. You know, one of those things people have been comparing is something like social media, but there's so much access to different things online, whether it be, you know, all the likes that we want, you know, all the follows. It could be pornography, whatever it may be. But through your experience of everything that you've picked up, like, you know, anybody who is currently listening and going through some form of addiction themselves, what's kind of like the first steps and you know, what's the light at the end of the tunnel that helped you get there towards recovery?
Well, I think inevitably it came down, like, literally the first step was just the ability to finally ask for help. Like, the ability to finally identify, acknowledge, like, this isn't sustainable. I can't do this alone. There's support out there, but I have to be humble enough to actually accept that help. Yeah, dude. Yeah. Especially when, very similar to how I was explaining, like, you know, early in middle school, the high school days, like, a lot of people were still doing what I was doing, but seemingly like with another level of grace and, you know, carefreeness, and they didn't necessarily succumb to the depths of like depression that I found myself in. They could still work jobs. They could still kind of function to a certain degree. Some of those people, like there's a handful of guys that I ran with, like, meaning that I used to like do a lot of pretty hardcore drugs with. They continued to do them after I got sober. And one day they just made the decision, like, I'm done. And they were done, and now have families and kids and like own their own homes and what, you know what I mean? Like, that just wasn't my story. I had, and again, like, to answer your question, like, I had to first acknowledge that, like, this affects me uniquely because, and I know it in my soul. Like, I don't possess the capacity to do this anymore, and I got to ask for help. So that's where it all started. And, you know, God bless Mama Bear, called Mom, like, hey, I know we've been through this, but we gotta rock and roll, and we got to do it pretty quickly because I will change my mind.
Yeah. So, what are you currently working on right now? What do you see as, you know, your future with your hopes and goals going forward?
Well, I think, I mean, to like, even going back to looking at, like, I mean, stuff that you guys have done, like how to create a space for you guys. I mean, I was getting more in tune with kind of what you've been doing lately. And it's just like, there's so much room to just like be a voice, right? And just to be like a sense of belonging. And I think that's what I've always appreciated about you, particularly for us. Like, you're so community oriented. You're so like arms wide open. Like, how can we do this for people and the value of we. And in my own way, personally and professionally, like, I've been doing that through a professional lens and a personal lens, but it's been very much kind of like, you know, just in my immediate kind of like life, right? Like, we've never, speaking for like me and my friend, like, we've never really utilized platforms that exist to really kind of like, you know, magnify some of our stories and who we are and what we do. So I think that is a cool thing to think about, like how I can channel some of that, and we can get creative and make this thing attractive to a bigger audience. But it's also this balancing act, because I'm not here to say like I'm an expert on anything, dude. Like, I don't want to be like this, like, you know, it's such a, because for recovery in particular, because there's so much new, like, therapists are involved nowadays, doctors are involved nowadays, everybody's got an opinion. And it's, it's a matter of finding that voice in the midst of all of that, and not necessarily stepping on the toes of people, being very kind of like, it's a weird space to start like kind of advocating for. But inevitably, I think that, as far as the future is concerned, I definitely like release is such a beautiful thing. These two guys, the guy Zach that I was talking about, I still work for him. He's become very much like a big brother, very close friend, mentor. And his co-partner, Justin, is another like big brother of mine. They're a little bit older than me, but totally took me under their wing. And we've just been kind of in our own like immediate area, been creating in our like, these sober living homes and recovery coaching, and like, how can we meet people and get in front of people and hopefully just kind of like listen to them and learn who they are, and not be so kind of like ultra clinical, ultra therapeutic, but just like kind of be a dude that shows up with some tattoos and a Yankee hat with some Jordans on and be like, yeah, what up, dude? Like, who are you? Well, what are you into?
I think you're the perfect person for that reason. But,
yeah, you know what I mean?
Also it's that you are contributing in some way. Like, I know you have with release recovery, you were raising some money for something. Do you want to explain what that is real quick so we can link it in the bio as well?
For sure. So y'all probably get a kick out of this. So 2020 was nuts for everybody, obviously, right?
Yeah.
So what also happened in the midst of that, and I've mentioned Zach a couple times, but Zach's sister anonymously submitted this video application, whatever the hell it is, for him to be a part of the Bachelorette. And
no way.
I swear to God. So this is so crazy that this happened. So long story short, like, he goes, he does it, he wins. Zach just won the Bachelorette. He's like,
really?
I mean,
wow.
I swear to God. Yeah, I swear. This
Wait,
happens.
so people know who this is?
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. Yeah. People know who he is. And, I mean, dude, he went from like, 600 followers to, 600,000 followers. I mean, it's insane. So we've all of a sudden got this new audience, and we've got like, so we created a foundation because we're trying to, we're not here to exploit anything, but we do like all of a sudden see an opportunity.
Of
and
course.
it's, you know what I'm saying? So like, how can we use this opportunity for good? Yeah. So again, going into like the big bureaucratic convoluted thing that I was mentioning earlier, as far as Pandora's box, like, treatment is a weird space. There's a lot of different forms of it. There's a lot of different, insurance, this, private pay, that. It's a very complicated space to navigate. So knowing that I've worked in inpatient treatment, outpatient treatment, now sober living, Zach and Justin have been working in sober living for like, probably 20 years combined. Again, we're not we know this space pretty well. We know the ins and outs of like what quality treatment is, what it looks like, who to trust. So we create. Yeah, dude, you've seen him? Yeah, there he is. God bless him.
Just looking it up.
Yeah, dude.
That's so cool.
Great. Wow. And again, that's the first guy for us, like sitting in the Out magazine, that somebody was like, yeah, you called this guy Zach. And then flash forward 5 years later, and the dude's, I mean, and that was what was so surreal too. Because like, I've never watched the show, and watching him do this, I was like, I know this guy like so incredibly well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, it was so surreal to watch, but also so cool to be like cheer for him, because like I want him to find happiness and all the stuff that this show is supposed to represent. And thus far has been like a total success story. Like, I met Tasha. She you know what I mean? Like, it's insane. So it's been an interesting trip, but we want to raise money. We want to take advantage of the opportunity and raise money and help people access treatment, particularly people of color and women, because those are two very, very underserved populations. And it's crazy. And I like, the short of it is, dude, like, when companies go in network through like, okay, say you're a state-run facility and you require on Medicaid, right? And 99% of your population is Medicaid dependent, meaning they have, what was formerly a Obamacare or some type of state-funded insurance policy, right? A lot of people who don't necessarily have access to, say, somebody that works at a corporation where I've got an Anthem plan because I signed up for that plan through my job. A lot of people who aren't afforded that opportunity will get some type of state-funded care. The problem is those state-funded cares, like the reimbursement rates aren't great. So what that opens up the door is that you'll have a Medicaid facility that requires, in order to meet their kind of, their financial needs, has to have a population of, a lot of people. So then all of a sudden you've got, overhead's crazy, you're barely getting by, your margins are thin, and you have to, you don't pay your therapist the greatest money. They start at really entry level type salaries, but they've got a caseload of anywhere from 20 to 40, 50 people. And it becomes this mill, and you're not really giving people quality treatment. On the other hand, you've got private pay institutions that cost an arm and a leg to get into, but you're going to get really good treatment. You're going to get the intimate, vulnerable, comforting, come here, let us show you what recovery is. And it's also a marathon. You go to a 28-day treatment center because that's kind of like the ICU unit. You got to stabilize, you got to get assessed, you got to understand what's broken. But then, very similar to my experience, then you go to kind of your aftercare, where you do, your physical therapy, and you make sure that you still see your dietitian and your nutritionist and whatever, and to make sure that your care is still there. So there's just so much misconception around recovery. A lot of people still think you go to treatment for 28 days, you do you get rinsed up, you come out and you're cured. It doesn't work that way. You're dealing with, an ailment that is chronic and doesn't go anywhere. It does not go anywhere. That much is obvious.
So this is going to help those people get the help.
Get to quality
that
treatment.
Either can't afford it or
correct.
Get there,
We want to help you get quality treatment. And again, so many people can't access quality treatment because it costs so much damn money. So the intention is, if we can raise enough of it, and we've got a ways to go, and none of us really know how to fundraise, so we're learning. But all the while, how can we raise funds? So we started this T-shirt drive. It actually, by the time this airs, it'll be past. I'm sure that the T-shirts may still be for sale. But we did a T-shirt drive where, where you buy a T-shirt and all the proceeds.
2 hours left on it currently.
Yeah, right. So it's in tonight, but it's been up for for a few weeks, and we've raised, given the fact that we've never done this and don't know what we're doing, we've raised some money, which is amazing. So all those proceeds, I think it's up to maybe 50,000 last time I looked.
Wait, so if people still want to buy the T-shirt and help out, can they still do that after?
Yeah,
it
after.
ends?
So when this airs, yeah, for sure. So
okay.
There will still the foundation's not going to go anywhere, and people can still access it and donate, and those shirts will still probably have plenty of them.
Because the shirt's really nice. So go look at the shirt. I'm gonna get one because I like the shirt. It's a nice design. So.
Hell yeah, thanks, dude. Hell yeah.
Good stuff.
Yes, so that's been an interesting thing. We Zach and Justin started this whole endeavor in Westchester County, which is right north of New York City. It's about 45 minutes north of the city. There's a 17-bed sober living up there. It's structured. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It's comfortable, etc. In early 2020, they brought me in to help build, run, facilitate a New York City property. So I came in and started working with them in 2019, got really kind of involved, and then we started building out this program. And literally right when we got it up and running, within weeks, we had to figure out what to do because of COVID. And it's just been crazy, man. It's just been so crazy. And you guys, I'm sure, heard the reports and saw it, but New York was a very, very weird place for a long time.
Yeah. No, that's and living in your apartment, I'm sure it's difficult at times. New York is supposed to be the place where everybody's just interacting constantly and all of that. So I'm sure that was difficult.
Yeah, it's been weird, but one of the kind of silver linings is, again, that community that I've been blessed to. I had to come up here and do it all over again to a certain degree. I had to do everything that I did when I first got to Bel Air, as far as asking for help, meeting people, getting awkward, uncomfortable, whatever, but have done that. And it's that's kind of the silver linings. As much as your average Joe is very much in a different world. Yes, I'm in a different world, but I still have so much access to this community. we figured it out, man. We're a resilient lot that just figure it out.
Yeah. No, your story one is incredible. I'm proud of you. We forgot to mention that you just hit your 10-year mark.
Congratulations.
Of being sober
Thank you,
just
guys.
last year. So yeah, congratulations. And you're doing great stuff. And I love your whole, your perspective on it.
And openness.
And openness. Yeah, I think it's super important. So thank you for sharing all of that and being you.
Yeah, thank you guys for being you and providing the opportunity. And I don't know, man. I think that I just I don't know what the end game is necessarily. You know what I mean? Like I just know that there's a lot of people still out there who are lost and don't really know what the hell is up. And if there's any chance that some story, like some experience that I've gone through is people can connect with and provides them some hope, then that's amazing. You know what I mean?
For sure. Where can people, if they want to reach out, ask questions, or get more information, are you doing stuff through social media, or like, is there anything you want to shout out that we can link below?
Yeah, I think feel free to link me. It's at Neil Patrick Harman, HARMAN NEIL. Also, really at Release Recovery, at Release Recovery Foundation. I think that those three things, and hopefully we can help some people, dude. I don't know.
That's perfect. All right, so there's one last very important question. Our show is called Strange Flavors, and we ask all our guests this at the end of every episode. So, Shamir, you want to take that away?
If you could describe yourself in any flavor, what would it be and why?
What a question. What a question. I'm sure y'all hear all sorts of crazy stuff. Yeah, right? Like, shot clock's on. I guess just like the easy...
Don't go the easy. Go with you.
Well, that's the thing, right? Because I think I'm just going to choose something and then have to make it make sense. Right?
That's the best part. That's the creativity.
Right. So my instinct says to go with mint chocolate chip.
Okay.
Ooh.
And say, because like some people like really love it, and some people just like don't really, you know what I mean? Like it's just not for them. And personally, for me, like I tend to really like mint chocolate chip. Does that make sense? Does that work?
We've gotten mint chocolate chip. Mint chocolate chip was actually my flavor as well, but nobody said that reason yet. So
okay,
that was.
I've noticed that with people though. Like when I get ice cream, like I get typically pretty excited. Like, oh, this mint chocolate chip. Like, I'm gonna try that out. The new spot, whatever. And some people like have like really interesting reactions to like, oh no, I would never. You know
we love it here. I love it.
Okay.
Shamir and I both love it, so we're used to that reaction. So it's fine.
Right. Okay, cool.
You're loved here. No, Neil, thank you again so much for being here.
Thank
we
you.
appreciate you. And yeah, for anybody listening, I hope this was super beneficial, and go help out, go buy some shirts, and support Neil and everything that he's doing.
Thank you so much, guys. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Strange Flavors. It's been another week,
Another flavor.
a little less stranger. We'll talk to you next time.